I remember having a conversation with some friends after seeing the reboot of the Ring series back in 2017. Let's just say it was a bad time. We began to discuss how it had been a long time since any of us had seen a horror film that left us thinking, that wasn't just a good scary movie, that was genuinely a good movie. Around that time, every horror film we had seen was the textbook definition of a Blumhouse movie. See my last video if you're confused about that. So, when I got home that night, I decided to do a little research and try to find some higher quality horror films. I found a few lists recommending some films that didn't look that great, so I took a chance and looked at the new releases. I found this newly released film on Netflix. I gave it a watch thinking the trailer looked neat enough. Little did I know I would discover one of my new favorite horror films, of which we are going to be talking about today. So join me while we discuss what is so great about The Ritual. Naturally, this will have massive spoilers for the film, so get out now if you have any interest in seeing it, and just know I highly recommended it enough to make this video at least. Now, before I get into the film itself, I wanted to point out the lack of content that has been made about it. Even looking now, there's only a handful of reviews talking about the film in brief, unspecific ways, or maybe a handful of videos talking about the monster, which does deserve to be talked about, yet nothing really goes that deep into the film itself. So, as someone who thinks this film is criminally underrated, I wanted to shine some light on the film to make sure that it isn't so easily forgotten, especially in an age of horror that seems to reward low-effort filmmaking. I feel this is a good moment to talk about the director of The Ritual, David Bruckner, a director that up until this point had only ever done horror short films. So, as a film by itself it's quite impressive, but as a feature-length directorial debut, it is even more impressive. Bruckner has only made a career of horror films, so as someone who is steeped in the genre, he knows what the kind of rules are within these types of films. You can see this in an interview he did with HeyYouGuys.com when he says,
I think I like the idea that there's a measured expectation. The audience can, have a sense of what the rules are of a particular kind of movie, because then we get to break them or play to them and relate to them, and yeah, that's fun. That's of interest to me.
so with a director who knows the boundaries of his genre, which we will discuss later on, and a clear mindset for the film, we can start to get a picture of why I think this film is so worth talking about. Love and care was put into this film, so let's go over some points that prove this. The first being that the film is genuinely scary. I know this part is more subjective, but as someone who never feels afraid when watching horror films anymore, there were a few moments in The Ritual that genuinely stuck with me for some reason or another. Personally, I find it due to the film's tone and lack of generic jump scares that plague a lot of the genre. The film has this heavy, oppressive tone throughout the entire run, similar to the classic horror films of the past like The Exorcist. Even during the lighter moments, there are always something lurking in the background, either seen through visuals or implied through the film's amazing sound design. From the second our four main characters enter the forest, you can feel the weight of the trees, as in some shots they are even framed to seem like prison bars. This just amplifies that feeling of being trapped and helpless, and it really helps the viewer get in the shoes of the characters. Speaking of which, something that surprised me about the film was the chemistry between the four characters. Most modern horror films just tell you a group of friends is friends, they don't really show it. With this film you can feel the friendships between each of them and how some have been strained with the death of their friend at the beginning of the film. I think the strongest part about this is that they never tell you details about them, they imply them throughout the film. For example, with the character Phil, he has by far the least amount of dialogue and screen time, and it is never clearly stated that he has a drinking problem. Yet through small moments such as when the character Hutch is pouring the remaining alcohol out, we see Phil look distressed. Then several points later in the film, we hear him complain about the lack of alcohol, as he repeatedly states that he could use a drink.
Hiking was easier yesterday.
What, we weren't in the forest yesterday?
We bloody weren't.
Come on, the sooner we get going, the sooner we get to the town, the sooner we get to the bar, the sooner we get drunk.
Which could be taken as a joke, but when you realize that all four characters have been dealing with the death of their friend and the depression that comes with that, it takes on a whole new implication, and these little small moments add a lot to these characters. The film is full of these little moments and interactions between the group that adds a level of realism that I feel a lot of other horror films try to replicate but always come off as forced or out of nowhere. Since there are so many videos out there already talking about the creature, I won't spend a ton of time going into it. With that being said, the film does what a lot of the best creature features of the past have done. They saved the reveal of the creature for later on in the film, thus building the tension with the audience not knowing what the thing even looks like, which triggers that fear of the unknown that's in every human. But oh boy, when they reveal it, dude, they reveal it. What I love about the creature, beyond its awesome design, is the fact that it can at one moment seem animalistic and random as it unleashes its violence on the group, and at another seem strategic and calculating, seen when it's picking off the members of the group or leading them in a specific path. Again, making the mystery of the creature that much more intriguing and the overall film that much more interesting. Now, I know what you all are thinking. This doesn't seem like the most original film out there. How many horror movies consist of hikers getting lost in the woods, taking shelter at a creepy cabin before getting hunted by a monster? However, what the film does do is take these old, worn-out tropes and plays with the viewer's expectations. While it doesn't always subvert them, it does change them enough to mess with the viewer a little bit. My favorite example of this is when the group stumbles upon a cabin in the woods. I know, roll your eyes, it doesn't get much more cliche than that.
Well, this is clearly the house we'll get murdered in.
The group enters and takes shelter from a passing storm. While they relax, they send someone upstairs to check to see if anyone is home. The suspense builds. As he calls for his friends because he found something, it turns out they stumbled upon a kind of human effigy. The group all head back downstairs in a rush to try to get some sleep. Now, in most horror films, this is when the killer slash monster would strike. Yet, the group all wake up having some pretty disturbing nightmares, but still all alive and safe. The group quickly leave the cabin to find that someone or something was carving markings into the trees all night, and that the group now has to leave the comfort of the creepy old cabin to brave the dangers of the woods outside. What I love about this is that most horror films would have the big attack come at the cabin. The ritual instead plays with the viewer's expectations
Well, this is clearly the house we'll get murdered in.
to kick the tension into a new gear going forward from this moment in the film. And that is what I love about the film. It builds upon itself to further the story and further that tension in the viewer, which doesn't really let up until the last 20 seconds of the film when the character Luke is the last survivor and makes his way out of the forest. I hope this video has made more people interested in this film that I love, or at the very least shown that when horror films have passion and effort put into them, we get quality work like this, unlike a lot of the quick, cheap Blumhouse horror films we have become used to today. So, thank you for watching this series. I've been Alex, and I'll see you all later. Bye.